practical. It's not going to work. I told them that. I also made it absolutely clear that if you are going to create a coalition of parties that do not include the major party, United Democratic Party, which I kept telling them that it's one of the most formidable vehicle if you want to confront and bring about change, I don't think it's going to work. And I also do know that what we did in 2016 was a little bit different. The coalition came from the Gambia, and what we did was we complement their efforts by raising funds. And that, to me, my solution to bring about change, and I kept putting emphasis on it, were 3 points, and that is, we need to rally and bring about a new constitution for the 2026 elections. That is important, whereby you have to win by absolute majority. Simple majority is not going to cut it. We want system change. That, to me, is system change. I also made it clear that the other point is that we have the constitution. Diaspora voting, I think, is absolutely another element that I think is important for system change. The other thing was to reform the Independent Electoral Commission, do away with attestations and things like that. We want an independent electoral commission, which I think we still do have. There are shortcomings that needs to be cleaned up. If we do that, as far as I'm concerned, I could care less. If the diasporans can vote, if we have a new constitution, not this stupid 1997 constitution that was bastardized by the dictator, and then I do believe we have those elements. That's all we need to bring about change.
Musa,
convinced.
Musa, let me, before Saul comes in, I don't mean to cut you. So are you saying all those you've listed, if we're able to implement those, that should suffice, irrespective of a coalition? Is that what you're saying?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Not necessarily. I do agree with you. Not necessarily, because I wasn't born yesterday either. But I do know that the system change that they were talking about, coalition for a system change, I'm saying if you have these 3 elements, that will give us system change. I also do believe if you have these 3 elements, especially the second round of voting, it makes a coalition much more practical. You see, it makes it much more practical. From the get-go now, I just don't see how you can have a complete coalition of all the parties like we did in 2016 against.
I get what you're saying now.
Against Barrow. I don't think that is possible. I just don't believe that is possible. Now.
So you're saying if we had that 51 plus majority, even though we do not have the coalition from the onset, but because if there is a first round of voting and no party was able to break through that 51%, that is a mechanism that would force folks to come together, irrespective of their decision, to push through that threshold. Yeah, I got it. I think today, for the first time though, I'm going to give it to you on your.
I want us to disagree though. I want us to disagree a little bit. That will get my temperature. And another point before Saul comes in that I raised was the question of safeguards. Because you see, we all were talking about safeguards were put in place in 2016. Safeguards in regards to Barrow just running for 3 years. You know what I mean? And then change the constitution, and then we have new elections. There were safeguards put into place. There were safeguards that Barrow resigned from the United Democratic Party and he became an independent candidate. There were a lot of safeguards that were put in place. But at the end of the day, there was no leverage. When he won, he was like, he gave us the finger. What makes you think? What safeguards can you put in place to make sure that that doesn't happen? And I wasn't able to get answers. All I was getting was mass mobilization and Fila Harijar. And I'm like, so, give us a surmise. It was really nice meeting you in Atlanta. I think you did a fantastic job. Like I said, you guys, your heart is in the right place. You guys are soldiers. But just your tools, the methodology, and the approach that I have problems with. Can you convince me, convince Arian, and convince our viewers, Brother Saul? Tell us what happened in Atlanta.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Musa, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
All right. Well, I want to extend my greetings to my brother Sariang. I understand some things came up and you weren't there, but you were the missing puzzle of the piece with Musa Jeng, Coach Pasamba and I in Atlanta. But I'm going to take this moment, Musa Damala kasi Olaf, because then I'll
Yes.
come back to English. Dama buga
Mm.
nit ñi xam ne wax dëgg yàlla you opened your doors at the event center, the Savannah Event Center, and gave me the keys to do as we please. And I had access to everything we wanted to be able to host that event. And that is priceless, Musa. And Tukulur, she said this, but I'm just going to give it to her. There's a cost to running that business, Musa. And on that day, whatever the bill was, the electricity, the air conditioning, we all know how hot Atlanta is. Sariang, you know this, I know this, everybody knows that. But Musa opened up his doors to me. He gave me the code to come in early in the morning to set up, uh, and we did our event. So I will take the pros and cons, which is the cons are more important than the pros. A lot of my leadership who they were traveling in. I was mostly doing things and didn't have the support that I would have gotten. Keva just moved from Texas. He was settling down in Atlanta. Uncle Salum was also busy. Koto Salum, I don't call him Uncle Korola. So they were all tied up. So the setting up which we needed with one of your young guys was very phenomenal and helpful technology-wise. The sewing up and helping us get everything lined up before we started was the reason why our technological side did fall apart because the intent was for Keva to hold one thing and I would do the slides and then we'll switch back and forth. Nonetheless, these are things that we've learned. And my Zoom, I registered my Zoom, but it was registered on my cell phone, and the one that I have on my iPad, my laptop, was not the registered one. So it would give us 41 minutes and it cut off. But nonetheless, all of these things have been fixed. But here I am to thank Musa for giving us that part of it. It is priceless, Musa. If we had to go someplace else to host this event, not only we would not have access to folks to be able to come in, but then there would be a price tag on it. And for that, I want to thank you for opening up the door. So I said this at the event in the opening for those who did not hear me. Ne, Musa, yo ya banker. Since 2016, you've been making this cry ne Atlanta July 4th su jotee saa yu ñu bëggee def event dañoo dem fii ñu ne ñu tëj leen dugale dem fële. You said this for so many years and you were talking to banker trying to bring your heads together to figure out how you can do this. I don't think it's more about the money because that's part of it because for you to make a business you have to earn a little bit of income to be able to have these young people who come in and help you. I bet you some of them are getting a little uh, some money from helping you. But you do have people who would be working there to fix the place, the cleaning and all that stuff. So Lulu, yep, dafa bokk see what you have been doing to bring up these Savannah Event Center. So Lulu mom diga diga ne hiala man. I am so ever grateful. And so is the steering committee of the Coalition for System Change. So these were the glitches that happened, but we fixed those things. The Zoom is good. We had a meeting yesterday. So the takeaway from this event, Musa, and I'm going to go back to this. You guys are talking about the fact that we have issues regarding where we want to take the country. And yes, Musa, we should be able to have people asking questions about what we're doing and how we're doing things because we have money. Ñun suñ bëggee def dara we shouldn't just people were talking President Jamai Pai after his lengthy interview for the first time. There were people talking on TFM with this guy, was it Papangai? And this guy was talking about, on the side of the government. And this other guy was critiquing the government.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy who was on the side of the government was talking about, that we shouldn't question things. And I agree with him, that with Papangai. What are your talk fee ñu expect ne saa yoo leen buggee def dara doo leen am nit ñoo xam ne dañoo ñëw ñu criticize leen ne yéen li ngeen nekk di def man agree wu ma ci loolu. And this is what you always have done on this platform. I hear you saying that with Sharia, that somehow somebody should be on the other side critiquing and arguing as to why this person believes in this way. If we all agree that that is groupthink and it's a dangerous precedent, we don't want that. So I give you kudos for letting us use your space and kudos for coming in and questioning us. So I'm going to answer that question that you talked about the coalition, that having a complete coalition may not be possible. And I agree. It is quite fine that we don't have a complete coalition of the people we had the time back in 2016. It is quite possible. But for right now, what we're doing is we're not doing things independent of the opposition parties. We have invited them, as you have already seen, a couple of them showed up. Some of them didn't. And I understand. People are skeptical. And so are the citizens of our country. ñu bare ngi toog di wax naan coalition bi yoon bëgg amuñ si interest. So there has to be a lot of work to convince people to believe ne lii mooy war a tax ñu war a get another coalition. And the missing puzzle, as you indicated about the safeguards, what we have now is different from what we did in 2016. What we did in 2016 when we raised funds, we brought these parties together, we told them to pick a flag bearer, and they did, and they selected Adama Barrow, and they went ahead and did the campaign, sending the message to people that this is what we're going to do. Now, failing to uphold to that is a bad precedent, Musa, because that is why people are skeptical. And that is why you're asking these poignant questions. These are very critical and important questions. I'm not going to talk Dandemayo Sadika Finganeka. You know, like the same question, maybe not as well put out as you have. Why didn't I like the question? You not wow, lan moy tax di bi yoon suñ amé président du def wax waxet comme Adama Barrow lu def mu tok fi di def lu ko neex. We will be able to answer that question, and we should be able to answer that question, especially a question coming from Musa Ajeng, who means well, than the person who's sitting over there asking, man, suma sani suma kata, ndama ko sani, sidin ko hamne duloro. And there is a danger to this issue about us, because people may feel again like living there kanang kafi bay. Comme ko ñun xam nañ luñ am, nañ ci continue with Adama Barrow. We have to present something as an alternative. In 2021, you cried out and said, we need a third alternative. We are in the process of creating a third alternative. And we just started, Musa. We've been together for 3 months. But I will tell you this, Musa. There's a lot of hard work that is going in the background that Gambians will come to know. We have put together reforms. We have put together ideas. We have a preamble. We have a bylaw. We have sections where we would have leaderships. That has completed its part. Now we're pivoting to creating these reforms committees where we will be discussing how these reforms are going to be implemented. What do we need to put in place for these reforms? I heard you talk about these ministers who somehow have this dual citizenship. New Guinea and I'm going things that are so ridiculous, Musa. And I'll come back to this safeguard question that you asked because it's important. ñu mënuñoo toog fii ñuy pump in over $1 billion of our money in that country ba pare constitution bi jox ñu which yoo xam nga loolu Coach Pa Samba Diaw ak ñoom Sidi Sané they fought this. The Supreme Court lii moo tax su ma waxee Assane Diallo dang ma dee against, but this is the problem. They should be able to put their foot down to say our citizens cannot be marginalized. We have about close to 400,000 Gambians. You heard me give those numbers. These are tangible numbers that are done. These were collected, put together by Omar Kebe.
Yeah.
The last time they had these survey numbers was in 2019. And my calculation tends to go along the lines of what our numbers would be today, 5 years on, if we were to count the citizens who were ñoo xam ne dañ juddoo Gambia ñu ñëw fii ak suñ doom yi ñoo sa doom yi based on this constitution they qualify to vote. So amee tey state so amee 18 years they qualify to vote. So if you add those numbers plus the $1 billion that we're pumping into that economy, now you're talking a constituency of about close to 380,000 Gambians ñoo xam ne ñu ngi leen marginalized. How do we allow this to happen under these conditions when the constitution clearly states that these citizens who are out there by this 1997 constitution?
Yeah. So he cut off there for a minute. I'm not sure
what happened.
I don't know what happened. But I mean, I hear where Saul is. Hold on. where Saul is coming from. I mean, making his argument. The only question is, where do they go from now? So he's telling us, he's admitting the difficulty of forming a coalition, no doubt. He's talking about, and I heard that even when I was at their meeting, they're talking about the third rail. I mean, you remember back in 2021, before that, that was something that I was peddling out here. I mean, that was my mantra, that I had issues with, the breakaway of UDP forming two parties and then just coming and dominating, monopolizing the political space. I thought there should be a third option at that time, that the only way we can be, we can have what I would call a competitive elections to give us an option. I did not like the binary choice. That's why but anyway, I'll let Saul continue. Yes.
I had a call, but sometimes these things, there's nothing you can do about it. But anyway, my point was talking about our citizenship and the numbers that are out here in the diaspora. That we have 380,000 people of us. How many people voted in West Coast? 70,000 people voted for Yankuba Dabo. So you can say West Coast, which is the largest constituency, may have had 110,000 participants who voted in the election. Most of those people voted for Yankuba Dabo. If we were to be participating in the election, I'm not saying 380,000 Gambians out in the diaspora would vote or qualify to vote, but I can bet that 50% or 55% of that number would qualify to vote. If we were to vote and there's an amount of 200,000 Gambians voting, that number would be larger than perhaps the people who voted in West Coast, or equal to the people who voted in West Coast. So my point is, we cannot allow this to happen. And this is one of the things that we are going to put in place. And the fight needs to start with us Gambians. Yange wa afi passport and visa. So they may Gambia nga ega ci airport bi ñu la nga fay visa. We are going to question us Gambians to fill out some data and tell us whether they support this idea of nga dembe ega banji ñu fail a visa. Not only that, you la fail a security fee, as if you are a foreigner in your own country. These are things that we're talking about. So coming back to answer your question about these safeguards, what we have talked about, and this is what we're going to implement. Not only are we doing this out here, we are doing this with communities and people on the ground. We are going to work with other groups. You saw these young people called what do you call it again? Concerned citizens. They're very smart and intelligent. The idea is bring them together. This is a work in progress, but a movement that is the name we're calling it, but it's going to be a committee that is going to be put in place if we ever arrive to the point of having a coalition, whatever the coalition is going to be. We haven't picked a candidate, we haven't done anything, but that coalition would be responsible, or committee would be responsible of overseeing whatever agreement we have. And they're not going to be there for 2026 alone. They will be there for the duration of that 5 years of a contract with the Gambian people. When we shake the hands of Gambians and say, this is our agreement, this is what we want to fulfill for you. And the president will be beholden to that. And we are going to make sure that when we have parliamentary elections, every political party that has joined this coalition will be asked to go and independently campaign. We will fund them to campaign, because not only will they be passing the laws, but they will be holding the president and holding everybody accountable to make sure that whatever we agreed upon is implemented for the period that we have in the presidency. It's a tough call. Daniel Musa, I mentioned this that July 4th weekend, which was a very important point for me to raise. I don't think us Africans understand the implications and the importance of democracy. And I'm going to emphasize this for Gambians to understand this. July 4th was the day in 1776 that these leaders, the founding fathers, signed on their constitution in Philadelphia. Around August the 27th, they were out there battling out with the British. Do you understand the difference between that? A country that is saying we are independent, but they were not independent completely, because the British never gave up. They almost lost it to the British during that fight with the Battle of Brooklyn. That was on August the 27th, some 25 days, 20 days after they signed their independence. George Washington and his people almost lost that. Thousands of citizens, soldiers from Maryland, my state where I am, they were all killed in that fight. They never gave up. They lost it to the British, but they came back and they fought and they defeated the British. The British packed up their stuff and they went back. This is how the United States sacrificed itself. There were people, we teach this in the classrooms, people walking in snow, Musa, barefoot, frigid cold weather conditions to defend their country. What is stopping Gambians from doing this? We will not be successful if we are working in groups. It has to be a coalition, just like we did in 2016, by us bringing our thoughts and things and ideas together. Now we are doing the groundwork. We're going to begin doing that. I'm going to be in an interview in about 25 minutes at 3 o'clock with Freedom Radio to again push this idea. But I'm going to pass it on to you,
Musa. Nobody disagrees with that a coalition could be an option. Now, most people are saying, listening to you and being at the meeting, that you guys are confronted with what I would call two options. I don't think you'll be able to get a coalition of all the parties. You guys mentioned the third rail as an option. The third rail. How do you envision that third rail?
Oh, Musa, I'm sorry. I was just talking to somebody, my daughter. What was your question again?
The question is, I mean, when I was at the meeting, they got a lot about third rail, and I was able to glean, but I don't want to be presumptuous. You guys were kind of teetering around it. When you say third rail, what do you mean?
You're talking about a third rail or guardrail?
Third rail as an option. Because
I don't understand the question about guardrail. I mean, we're talking about a third option.
Third rail, the third option. Like, in other words, because when I said there should be a third rail, back in 2021, Moine, we have to run against NPP and against UDP. We have to give people a third choice. We don't want to be in this capsule of binary choice. When you guys say the third rail as an option, what do you guys mean by that?
Okay, this is a very important question. But I'm going to answer the question. This guy, Faba Kariba, posted a question asking about what we define about a system change. That definition is already there. I urge people to visit our website and go to our Facebook page. You will read our mission and vision. The Facebook page again would be Coalition for System Change. If you go to our website, which I'm building, we just posted that website, coalitionforsystemchange.com. You will be able to see some information there, but we will post more details there. But this answer has been completely done. We may talk about it tonight during our Freedom Radio interview. What I mean, Musa, is this. We're not doing this third option like you suggested back then because you wanted us to have something independent of UDP and NPP.
Yes.
That's not the intent of this coalition. The intent of this coalition is, again, Adama Barrow ak ñoñam kenn du bokk ci suñ coalition bi loolu moom ma wax la ko tey. If you support NPP nga foog ne NPP dina ñëw ñu léegi lañ bëgg a ñëw négocier ak ñëw. I will not negotiate with Adama Barrow. I will resign from the organization. Adama Barrow does not have the competence. He is not trustworthy. He has lied, and these people continue to steal money from our people. I'm going to answer your question. Why politics? You have to allow me to answer the question. NPP Adama Barrow they will not be part of this coalition.
But what is the third option?
let me answer that question.
Option. Third, how many days? 1 day, 2 days, 3. So what is 1 and what is 2 and what is 3? 3 more in the third option. Moylan.
I'm not too sure that the description was about a third option. Maybe no longer dega, but the intent of what we're doing is not necessarily a third option, like you suggested that we should have done in 2021. I want to clarify this. We have written to all the other political parties. That align with what we think.
But no one,
Musa, hold on. Yeah, hold on. Teddy, they sent a delegation.
2005, 2003, when we reached out to them, the entire opposition party, Halifa Sallah was here, Omar Amadou Jallo was here, Yaya Jallo was here, Wajwara. In other words, the leaders were here. When I went to that hall, I did not see a single leader. What I saw was coattails. What I saw was sent sidekicks. No disrespect to them, but to me that tells me that these parties are not even committed. They don't see you guys as serious.
Thank you very much, and we appreciate the fact that they didn't. But I will take credit for what you just said. The time frame, again, I mentioned we started this 3 months ago. The time frame that we gave these political parties, to their credit, was very short. So let's begin your visa. Number one, that's one of the problems. But they all responded. Some didn't. And the reason why ñu foog ne ñoom ñëwuñ comme li nga waxee noonu, they may not necessarily say they don't take us serious, but they want to see what we are up against, what we are trying to offer. I think that is the hesitancy. So you're right. None of these political leaders came, and we're okay with that. What we want to do is we're gonna continue to do what we're gonna do. But to answer your question, Musa, there's no third option against the UDP. That's not what we're building. What we're doing is we will have this conversation with the UDP. The UDP at some point, and all these other political parties, they're not affiliated with NPP. That's the answer to your question. And when we have a coalition, the intent is not for a third option. No. Then Buga am an option of everybody going against Adama Barrow and Agnew. Does that answer your question?
Sayang, my good friend. Sayang.
Go ahead.
Musa.
Go ahead, because we have few minutes left before the European Championship. We'll be losing our viewers soon.
So I think you spoke about, if I heard you correctly, what kind of safeguard? Because you talk about initially if someone get elected into the presidency. I mean, based on the current constitution and the executive power vested on that individual, how do you curtail those powers? I mean, there is absolutely none. So from your vantage point, what are some of the safeguards, in terms of the grand scheme of system change? What are some of the things that you guys are talking about in implementing? And more importantly, I think Musa asked a question here, and I really wanted to kind of hit back on that a little bit. What are you guys doing to invite others to the table? Because if you say you guys are reaching out, I've seen certain, write-ups and conversations that contravenes in what you're saying. So, I mean, for clarity purpose, and a lot of people are watching, you got the floor. If you could shed light on those.
Okay, so this one, the second question is, in fact, a little bit more critical. We are not doing this independent of any of those political parties. And if you ask them, they will agree with you. And I'm sure political parties like DOI and UDP, they are honest enough. We have heard from these people. We were not able to respond for whatever reason, most likely because of the timing. Visa. So the timing was.
They did not even respond.
They did respond, Musa. I mean, I don't agree with you making this statement that they didn't respond.
Musa, stop agitating is my question, though. Saul, please answer my question. So he's a distractor today. Yeah, please. Okay.
NPP that's all there is. NPP Barrow Manati, NPP will not be part of this coalition. I'm just telling you, Barrow. You can go to Mankama. So, Saria, honestly speaking, your question about the fact that reaching out and having this conversation with these political parties, we have reached out to them, and I'm going to tell you this. They have been talking to us. Now, they would be skeptical, and I wouldn't blame them to be skeptical because, again, ñoom suñ buggee dugal seen boppa si lii, a lot of the people are going to ask, what is in it for us? So we're not doing this outside of not understanding what is at stake. Yes, they haven't showed up in the leadership, which is Musa Lumo Wahnun. But I have understood that these things are usually very slow, and these political parties are very skeptical. The ones that we believe are genuine, responding to our call, and that is settling to us. Now, your question about the safeguards are twofold. We will have part of this agreement with whoever we form a coalition with, that the agreement must be we will have a committee that is independent of any of these affiliations. It will be civil society group, whoever it is. That committee would be responsible of Hamga a Johnson agreement with Java Armabaro. It was more like what do you call it? Not an OS, a memorandum of understanding. We're not doing a memorandum of understanding. There would be a binary agreement where everybody would sign up to say, we are going to do this. We understand what the Constitution is saying. But, Sariam, your point well taken. The president can say, I'm the executive. I'm going to stay. I'm going to do whatever I want. This is why we are having the second guardrail protection of having members of parliament who are competent enough to hold the president accountable. In which case, if he doesn't do that, we're going to go out there and tell the citizens that we agreed and we shook hands with you. We had a contract with you, citizens, that this is what we're going to do. The president is not upholding to that. We want now to go and start talking about removing him. This is what our intent is. Now, whether people will agree with that or not, but that is what we're going to use for now until we can have a new constitution. On top of which, if we have a good parliament that comes into place, Musa or Sharia, now there's a window between when the president is elected and parliament comes into play. But during that period of time, this committee would be responsible of holding him up to the agreement. But when we have a new parliament, well, guess what? We will pass the new constitution, the constitution that you guys were talking about. I don't know if that answers your question.
Thank you.
All right. Samusa, I got to leave you guys because I have like 5 minutes. I'm going to be in another interview at 3 o'clock.
So, no. But we thank you immensely. Man, you hana gisilo on suma text me. I sent it since yesterday.
Gisuma sa text bi lay suma la ko waxe di ko I'll send you a screenshot of your yow foog naa dafa am ku la block nag foog naa Adama Barrow daf la block bugun nga wax
so just to wrap this up before you get away, you are firm and committed unequivocally that MPP dal mom bokut, right? Yeah. Agi, I hear you.
NPP maa ngi ñaan yàlla ne dama may ma mun suma wax bii nii mu taxaw NPP will never be part of this coalition suñ ko defee rek ma resign
boobu set naa
waaw bu saa soo demee nga wax ko loolu wax ko ne man maa wax loolu mais NPP suñ ma koolee I will hang up the phone of Adama Barrow ma naa
So thank you very much and good luck. We will be following you guys definitely. So coalition with all NPP bokk.
No, MPP bokk.
No, why say that? That's a given. You don't even have to.
No.
I mean, I'm going to Jahal. I mean, now I don't really even understand what their entity is all about.
He gets you confused. The one thing though,
the mission from the name, Coalition for System Change. Because if you bite more than you can chew, is that the right saying? I think they're going totally different tangent. This whole thing about putting policies in place and doing this and doing that, I think is too much. You guys want to make sure that Adama Barrow and the government get replaced with a totally different system, under a totally different government. So that has to be clear. So whatever you do, when you dive into policies and this and that, I think that is too much. All you guys need to do is work on bringing the parties together. Work. Spend time and effort onto that. And then so that come 2026, we are looking at maybe a binary choice, Adama Barrow against the opposition. To me, that would be the ideal. If anything that you do should be directed at that. So let's decide. And I asked him the third rail because, and he kind of, I mean, you know, we all know what the third option is. There are two parties that are seen to be monopolizing the political landscape. There are two parties now monopolize affair, more UDP and NPP. So when you take a third option, you're saying something other than these two. I feel every time you need to be honest, so that people you can bring them on board. But if people are confused on what you are trying to do, then parties are going to be very skeptical. And to me, that is why, I mean, I don't think these parties are taking. And another issue, Moine, that I kept asking, what makes you guys think political parties would even listen to you? What do you have? What leverage? In politics, you have to have leverage. If I'm going to listen to, one would ask, well, Musa, but then in 2003, they listened to you guys. Yes, we had leverage. We had a dictator, I mean, and everybody was running away. There was no media to talk about. So the diaspora was the place where we can campaign, we can take the fight to Jame, we can raise the money. No, I mean, there was no democracy of any sort. The political space was very narrow. So that was the leverage that the diaspora had. And in 2016, the leverage we had, Moine, look, you guys come together. If you do, however you do it, and it has to be a complete one, then we will fund it. You know what I mean? So that was the leverage. This time around.
Yeah. No, the other thing that I'm a little confused when I ask, about the president, how you could curtail, and he mentioned something about they would take their message to the voters because the presidential elections and the NAM elections are different. But I think I would call it naive to some extent because we've seen how these political parties play out, right? So somehow, if you really think you're gonna hold these names to an account, they're not gonna do whatever they want when they get to that National Assembly. I'm telling you, you must be drinking some big time Kool-Aid, man. I'm telling you.
No Kool-Aid. Huh? They're drinking some Hennessy.
No, I'm serious. I mean, how you got so the president has the Constitution, all the powers vested on him. You take your message, which is now binding. So how do you think who has the most power? I don't know.
Bro.
I'm a little confused with that answer.
Safeguards. There are no safeguards that you can put in place. Coming back to my solution. It will get to a point that we shouldn't dwell too much on who replaces Barrow. Yeah. Seriously. I think what we need to focus on going to change the system, and then the system will bring a replacement. If you allow the diaspora to vote, more one number 200, 300,000 potential voters, are you telling me that cannot change the political situation in the Gambia? It can. Are you telling me a second round of voting cannot change the political situation in the Gambia? It can, because I don't believe there's a single party that can win more than 50%. I just don't believe it. I don't. So there is going to be a second round of voting. I also do believe that if you reform the IEC and make it much better, give them the resources that they need, get away with some of these attestations and things that will compromise the integrity of the vote. But I do believe that if you do all those things, Gambian couldn't decide na mom la ñoy votal. I think we should respect that. That's what I believe. Really.
Yeah, I think there should be, first of all, a need identified, right? Saying that these are the pointers. And I think if I understand you correctly, that's where you are saying, hey, let's build a common team around what we need to present where we can get a solid buy-in, right?
Yes, so from everybody. Correct.
Yeah, from everybody. Not per se what you're saying, because I I think the mechanics of it, I think that's where I think still now they are struggling, right? So put some type of a solid framework and put some pointers and say this is the need. If we're able to talk all these like change of government, who is going to be at least at some point, if we pass the constitution, which is 50 plus one, if anyone hasn't hit that threshold, there is going to be a need to form a coalition. That formulation of that, whereby you can hash out these little skimmers and kind of fine tune. Yeah, I think what you are saying make complete sense, but I really don't know whether they are catching what you are saying. No. But I give kudos to you for that.
For the first round of voting, I mean, I could see parties making deals for the first round of voting. I mean, they can. I mean, if I were, let's say, a DOI or a UDP for the first round, I could go and say, you know what, I'm going to talk to this party and say, look, let's coalesce. All right, you come and support our candidate, and then we go through the first round. And then that would help them out. I could see them doing that, individual parties. Why not them? What we did in 2016. I don't think that is feasible. It's the feasibility, it's the difficulty of it. Looking at participation. And there are 15 candidates that haven't even announced yet. Sariang Marong hasn't announced his candidates yet. And then I'm in the office. So for you to think, man, you can rally parties right now. Nobody dares. You see, the incentive wasn't there for people to throw their hat in the ring. There were just few citizens that were willing to do it. So nobody would want to bring them together. Mogena Yomba. Legi, everybody and their father want to run for the presidency because of the political space that we have. So how in God's name are you going to be able to coalesce all of them in the land together? Some of them haven't even announced yet.
So the attendance was poor, huh?
Oh my God, extremely poor. And I told them that. In 2003, we had a hall full, 200 people. All the political leaders were there. The ingredients was there for a coalition. Nyom, I didn't even count. I mean, see, these are good people, so I don't want to discourage. I mean, I don't think I can discourage them anyway. But the numbers were minute. None of the leaders show up. They had their sidekicks. I think GFA was represented by Amadou Lo. There was another Sekou Jame. Represent. And then there was Hadijalo representing SFL. And I mean, and that was it.
And who were you representing? MPP?
Absolutely not. I mean, I wouldn't be going there. I was going there because these are my friends. Their heart is in the right place. We have two things in common. We all want change. We want come 2026, Barrow is replaced with another government. I don't want Fabakary Tombong Jatta to be the speaker. I don't want Sidi Njai anywhere close to the government. So what I have in common with them is that. Where I disagree with them is they are utilizing the wrong strategy to bring about the change. Yeah. So I had to go there and echo that sentiment, which I did. So Sariang, England versus Spain. Who you supporting?
Yep.
England versus Spain.
England, man. I'm supporting England.
Suma waji Sekou Sedili mu ma don jam xamna ne gis nga ko sax mu ma jam here.
Like what? What was he saying?
Self-adulation. Yeah, I know Musa Jeng, he doesn't think at the Bantaba. I mean, I called this long time ago that these people are their appointments are illegal. So I have been proven again. He said, I'm like, he doesn't, now he has to know that the Bantaba, we have networks and connections. Is true.
So that means for the people by the people don't have connections.
But I'm not gonna respond to my man. I gotta give him that much. Well, one thing I know, if there was one person that was always out there, and I'm not saying Bantaba doesn't, Pasamba was all over this Minister of Communication and Digital Economy, Usman Ba. Pasamba has been saying the guy has not renounced his U.S. citizenship. That much I know.
Yeah. No, he's been saying that. Yeah.
He's been saying that. Whether Sehu has said that or not, I don't know. Maybe he has. I don't watch Bantaba. I don't watch.
Musa, but you watch if they are not on live session, you don't watch. If they are on live session, you don't watch it. But after, I'm gonna sister be fat dance coming for more will be palantero le kanjive. So you palantero be.
No. Why not? If there is something hot, I will go and listen to my man. I even went to the Bantaba, Mangphone, and I was there. But this was at the beginning.
Musa, you kasi palantero be. After guys
No.
you like, let me go watch my man.
No, I'm gonna Bantaba the transition. When they started out, yes, it was a UDP platform, but it was very Nyemenyonen. It was also democratic platform. Opening it up, they can agree, it's just like they'll push the UDP policies and programs, which is fine, but also Ragalun to open up. They were inviting the Ibrahim Asilas of this world, they were inviting people that are not necessarily, but somehow it transitioned to become a propaganda tool. I would call it the apparatchik, Johan Posner. You remember Posner? Used to be this Soviet, he was always out there defending the Soviet Union. I mean, it's called Posner. and then let me see what Omar Jouf, my man, says here. The parties have the people, you can only reach the people through the parties. Telling folks to abandon their parties won't work. Their best option is to become a fundraiser for the coalition. But it is crucial we remember APRC lost about 300,000 illegal voters' cards. Make no mistake about it, Presi Barrow has inherited everything criminal in the practice of politics from the dictatorship. Sorry. The only way forward is to unify the players on the ground. United we stand, divided we fall. All right, there goes the UDP mantra from the UDP star player from Canada. my good old friend and classmate, Omar Jouf. He's a patriot, though. I can tell you that. He is a hell of a patriot. He was out there taking the fight to Jammeh. Really. So, Saryang, let's go watch this game, man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Later, man.
We'll come back. But say, Saryang, I forgot something, though.
What is it?
Maybe the arts. These people paying us some money.
Yeah, maybe. Well, how about Bas? Tell Bas to look at that ad and see if he can play it,
Yeah, he needs